Today, we're driving into a book that is, well, pretty out there. It's called The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard, and it's all built around one gigantic, world-shattering idea that everything you think is real isn't. And trust me, the story of how this message came to be is just as wild as the message itself.
But before we get into all that, let me just ask you something. What if your entire life, your job, your relationships, your memories, everything, was all just an elaborate dream, and the whole point was simply to wake up? Now, this isn't just a fun little thought experiment. It's the absolute core of what we're about to unpack.
So our story kicks off in 1992. You've got Gary Renard, a guy living a pretty normal life as a professional guitar player, and then one day, bam, two people, a man and a woman, literally materialize out of thin air right there in his living room. Now, these aren't just any visitors. They introduce themselves as Arten and Pursah, and they say they're ascended masters. Their mission? To teach Gary the real secrets of existence. And their textbook is this incredibly dense, challenging spiritual guide called A Course in Miracles. This wasn't a quick visit, by the way. These lessons went on for almost 10 years. So, you're probably wondering, what's the very first lesson these mysterious teachers shared? Well, it's the foundation for everything else, and it's a big one. They told him the universe, this whole thing we call reality, is just a dream.
Okay, so if it's a dream, where did it come from? According to them, it all started with what's called the tiny mad idea. It was this one fleeting thought in the perfectly unified mind of God that when something like, I wonder what it would be like to be separate from my source. Even though that's impossible in reality, that one little thought was enough to spark this entire illusion of a separate universe.
And from that tiny, mad idea, something called the ego was born. Now, when we say ego, don't just think of arrogance. In this context, the ego is the entire thought system that's designed to make that idea of separation feel totally real. It built this physical universe, it gave us bodies, it even invented time, all of it as evidence to prove that we really are separate individual beings. This quote really cuts right to the chase. The teaching is that true reality, which it calls heaven, is a state of perfect, unbroken oneness with God. So if life was created there, it can't actually exist anywhere else, which means this world we're experiencing, whatever it is, it can't be real life. So how does the ego keep us asleep and believing in this dream? It's got a pretty clever strategy. First, it gives us physical bodies, so we feel like distinct, separate individuals. Then it takes that deep, buried guilt we feel for even thinking we could leave God, and it teaches us to sling it outwards, blaming other people for our problems. This just creates an endless loop of conflict and drama, keeping us so distracted that we never think to ask, hey, wait a minute, is any of this actually real? So, if we're all caught in this massive, intricate dream, how in the world do we get out? The book says there's only one escape hatch. It's one single tool, but it is unbelievably powerful, a totally radical form of forgiveness. And here's the fundamental choice we're always making. The ego's dream world runs on one fuel, and that's fear. Fear of each other, fear of dying, a deep unconscious fear of punishment. Forgiveness, in the way this book describes it, is the only thing that can counteract fear and break the chains. Now, we have to be really clear. This is not the kind of forgiveness most of us grew up with. Traditional forgiveness says, okay, you definitely hurt me, but I'm going to be the bigger person and pardon you. See how that keeps the wrongdoing real? True forgiveness is a complete 180. It's a shift in your mind where you realize that since this is all a dream, no real harm was ever actually done. The attack you thought you experienced never really happened. So how do you actually do this? It's a mental process you can practice. The moment you feel upset about something, step one is to just stop and realize the problem isn't out there. It's a projection from inside your own mind. Step two, remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm dreaming all this. Step three, you mentally forgive the people involved who are just images in the dream, and you also forgive yourself for dreaming it up. And finally, step four, you ask your inner wisdom, or what the Course calls the Holy Spirit, for help to see the situation with love instead of fear. And let's be super clear about something. This does not mean you let people walk all over you or that you condone bad behavior in the world. This is a purely internal practice. Think of it like a workout for your mind. Its only purpose is to heal your own mind from the one thing that causes all our suffering, the belief in guilt. All right, so what's the end game here? What happens if you actually practice this kind of forgiveness consistently? Where does this path lead? Well, let's talk about the final destination, actually waking up from the dream.
The book defines enlightenment in a really cool way. It's not about becoming something better or different. It's simply a recognition of the truth of who you've always been. You don't change at all. You just finally stop believing in the lie that you were ever anything other than whole and complete.
This is it. This is the moment the whole dream of separation just collapses. You're not going to a different place. You're just fully and completely accepting your true identity as one with your source. And in that moment of acceptance, all the dream characters and their petty dramas, they just fade away because their purpose is over. So what is that state of being actually like? Well, words kind of fail us, and this quote points to why. It describes a reality so complete, so all-encompassing, that our concepts and our language just become pointless. There's nothing to describe because there's only one thing there. And that brings us right back to the title of the book. As you practice this true forgiveness again and again, the ego's world, this universe of conflict, bodies, and fear, it starts to lose its grip on you. It just seems less and less solid, less and less important, until finally it disappears from your perception entirely. That's it. You've woken up. So the ultimate takeaway is pretty profound. The universe doesn't physically blow up or vanish. It disappears for you because you finally realize it was never really there to begin with. Which leaves just one final question for you to think about. What illusion, what person, what old hurt are you ready to forgive right now?